Have you ever found yourself just wondering what the color red really is? I mean, beyond just, a wavelength hitting your eye.
Oh, absolutely. Or even how a feeling like that complex sort of bittersweet nostalgia,
Yeah,
how does that actually manifest physically?
exactly. And what if those deep subjective experiences, what if they aren't just trapped in our heads, but are like part of some measurable quantum field?
It's a really profound question, isn't it?
Yeah.
We tend to think of these things as purely internal, almost.
It-
Yeah, intangible.
Yeah.
But this framework, it really challenges that.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Today we're taking a deep dive into this, wow, incredible theoretical framework. It's from Philip Randolph Lillian's paper of Coherence, Qualia Dynamics, Spinor fields, conscious resonance, and dimensional experience.
Right, and it's a really ambitious piece of work. It tries to connect physics, the hard science,
Mm-hmm.
with phenomenology, the actual study of conscious experience.
Yeah, bridging that gap. So our mission for you today is to explore how this paper tries to do just that. It suggests something called a quantum geometry of consciousness.
Mm.
We'll look at how it defines the very fabric of experience, the really surprising and active role you play as an observer,
That's a key part.
and even how things like, wow, rituals might fit into this big picture.
It really shifts the perspective.
We often think of the brain as like the source of consciousness, right? But what if? What if it's not the source? What if consciousness is more like a signal the brain tunes into?
Exactly, like the brain localizes it, stabilizes it, but doesn't necessarily generate it from scratch. That's the core idea, consciousness as an expression of resonance coherence.
Okay, so let's start with that fabric of experience. The paper puts coherence right at the center. It calls it the fundamental ordering principle for, well, everything's structured.
Yeah, and it's crucial to understand it's presented as more than just, say, waves aligning in phase.
Right.
It's deeper.
How so? What's it doing then that makes things, make sense and stick around?
It's described as an intrinsic resonance symmetry. Think of it like the underlying pattern, the blueprint, that allows informational structures, energy, even dimensions to be intelligible and stable, persistent.
So it's like a field property.
Yes, a field property, kind of modulating potential.
Hmm.
And crucially, it's seen as a carrier of qualia, embedding those raw experiences into the structures themselves. It's the deep order.
Okay, and then qualia, central to this, we usually talk about qualia as the what it's like feeling, right? The redness of red, sharpness of pain, that sort of thing.
The irreducible units of experience.
But what's radical here, the paper says they're not just emergent side effects. They're not just fluff, are they?
No, absolutely not. Not byproducts at all. In this framework, qualia are defined as, get this, coherent-bound eigenstates of tensor field structures.
Whoa, okay. Eigenstates. What does that actually mean in plain terms? Like, what does it mean for red to be an eigenstate?
Think of it like this. If the universe is a complex symphony of these coherence fields, then each specific qualia, red, sharp pain, whatever, is like a unique stable note. Or maybe a chord. It's a specific, measurable resonance pattern within that quantum field, not just in your head.
Okay, that changes things. It shifts us from being passive observers to having a very active role. You, the observer.
Precisely.
The paper says the observer is defined by a vector field, your will vector, Spinor identity, bivector awareness field, coherence potential. So if red is a specific note, how does my observer field pick that note? How does it play the tune?
Right. Your unique vector field, according to this theory, actively directs coherence collapse. It allows for the Spinor eigenstate reduction into specific qualia manifestations.
So my intention, my focus, literally picks which note becomes real for me.
That's the idea. It's an active shaping process, which leads directly to what they call observer-coupled tunneling. Your observation isn't just watching, it's participating.
Okay, so how does the paper actually explain that? What's the language it uses for these concepts, like will and perception? This is where the math comes in, right?
Yeah.
With spinors and bivector.
Exactly. Those are the building blocks.
Can you give us an analogy? What are spinors and bivectors, fundamentally?
Okay, so spinors are described as the fundamental carriers of orientation, phase, and symmetry breaking. You could maybe imagine them as elementary dynamic threads of consciousness. Little twists of potential.
Like threads. Okay, and bivectors.
Bivectors represent oriented areas and internal relationality. So think of them as encoding the twisting, the resonance fields between those spinor threads. They capture the relationships.
Relationships, like connections.
Yeah, like internal phase, coupling the paper mentions links between chakra layers as an example, or even storing observer curvature memory. They define the resonant geometry between the threads.
So flowing threads and the twist between them, how do these combine mathematically to describe, well, our reality?
They get integrated into the coherence field equation. Now, the equation itself is complex. Trono. Plus Joe E, but we don't need to get lost in the symbols.
Right.
The key takeaway is that this equation defines the quantum geometry of consciousness. It essentially maps subjective experience onto specific quantized coherence flow patterns.
So it's linking abstract math directly to what I feel and perceive.
Precisely. It's trying to create that direct mathematical link between the objective field dynamics and your subjective reality.
And the paper uses analogies to help visualize this, right? Spinors as flowing consciousness threads.
Yes, and bivectors encode the twisting internal resonance between these threads.
And my observer vector acts like a tuning fork.
Exactly. A tuning fork that collapses the resonance into a quantized field of experience. The whole thing comes together as this dynamic tensor lattice.
A tensor lattice, like the underlying structure of experience.
That's the picture they paint. The architecture of your conscious world built from these fundamental components.
Okay, so if our experiences are these measurable states, and we are actively involved, how does the theory categorize the sheer range of experiences? All the different feelings, sights, thoughts. Is there a map?
Well, it introduces the concept of the Qualia Hamiltonian.
Hamiltonian, it sounds like physics. What does this operator do?
It's the operator that essentially generates the evolution and quantization of these qualic states. So every possible distinct experience corresponds to a unique eigenvalue that comes out of this operator.
Like a mathematical fingerprint for each feeling.
Exactly. It's the master key defining every possible qualia resonance mode.
And just like light can be pure or mixed, qualia aren't all the same type, are they? The paper talks about pure, composite, and tunneling qualia.
Right. Pure would be like that singular redness. Composite is something like bittersweet nostalgia, a blend of simpler qualia.
And tunneling, what's that?
Tunneling qualia represent that feeling of being in between states. It's the transitional drift, suggesting experience isn't always static, it flows.
Okay. And to quantify these, there are resonance quantum numbers, N, L, S.
Yes, Ogun, Da, and E. They define the quantized coordinates in qualia space for each eigenstate.
Coordinates in qualia space. Wow. Okay, so what does this mean for describing, say, my everyday experience, like the feeling of drinking coffee this morning? How would those numbers apply?
Okay, well, it might represent the intensity, the vividness of that coffee experience.
Right.
This refers to its dimensional entanglement, how deeply it connects across layers. Does it just wake you up? 3D, spark an idea, 4D, 5D, maybe trigger a profound memory, metadimensional.
Interesting.
Dottis is about spinor alignment. How aligned is that coffee qualia with your overall observer state? How present are you to the coffee?
Okay. And beta.
And ante is the bivector torsion angle, representing the internal resonance twist.
Yeah.
This could capture the subtle nuances, the complexity of the flavor and aroma profile. It provides a potentially precise language for subjective states.
That's incredibly detailed. And it gets even wilder, right? Qualia in coherent superpositions, like mixed feelings.
Exactly. Like feeling happy and sad. At the same time, a superposition of qualia states. And even more fascinating is entangled qualia states.
Entangled, like in quantum physics, but for feelings.
Kind of. It suggests that when multiple observers share coherent spinor lattices, maybe through deep connection or shared focus, their qualia states can become linked, leading to genuinely shared experiences.
Whoa, okay. That touches on shared reality. And the theory also maps this across dimensions. Oh, band structure.
Yes, the qualia spectrum is proposed to have a band structure across dimensions. From the base band, your normal 3D perception, seeing, hearing, touching, to a middle band for 4D, 5D phenomena like complex emotions and abstract thought.
Right.
And even an upper band for what it calls metadimensional experiences, things like archetypes, perhaps non-local cognition.
And moving between these bands requires phase coherence tunneling.
That's the mechanism proposed. You don't just shift states. You might actually tunnel into a different dimensional band of experience altogether.
It's like a multi-layered map of consciousness.
A very structured, almost cosmic map, detailing how we might navigate this vast landscape.
Which brings us back neatly to you, the observer, and attention. We said the observer isn't passive. How does the paper expand on this role as a coherence operator? That will vector seems key.
It really is. The observer is seen as a modulatory vector field, deeply embedded. Your will vector, specifically, designs the direction and the force of your perception. It actively modulates which coherence eigenstate collapses into your awareness.
So it's not just choosing to look at something. My intention is literally shaping what manifests from the potential field.
That's the implication. It's a fundamental part of the collapse process.
So attention, it's not just like a spotlight finding things that are already there. It's doing more.
It seems so. It's modeled more like resonance locking or phase locking.
Phase locking.
Yeah, between your internal observer fields components and the external fields components, you're focusing on that Spinor bivector coupling. This synchronization stabilizes the qualia state, makes it last longer, amplifies it.
So attention sculpts the experience, gives it persistence.
Exactly. It's a dynamic mechanism for amplifying and sustaining specific conscious states.
Which leads us to observer-induced coherence tunneling, shifting from one qualia mode to another by modulating the observer vector. It sounds like you can intentionally tunnel into a different feeling or perception.
That's a great way to put it. And the paper describes this tunneling as a non-thermal resonance-driven transformation. It's not like heating something up. It's about hitting the right resonance.
And this underlies, well, lots of things.
The paper suggests it's the mechanism behind intention-driven perception shifts, consciously changing your mood or focus. It also connects it to ritual modulation protocols.
Rituals again.
And even psychoactive coherence phase crossings. The idea is your directed will, through attention, can literally tunnel your experience into a different structure, a different qualia state.
And this is where it gets really, really surprising for many people. Rituals, not just symbolic acts.
Not according to this framework. They're described as structured sequences that modulate the observer vector and align it with specific coherence gradients.
So performing a ritual is like tuning your observer field.
Precisely. It produces resonance bridges across layers of the conscious manifold. It suggests there's a physics to it involving your observer vector trajectory, phase alignment rhythm, even the gate operator sequence, symbols, postures, mantras used as specific tools.
Wow. Okay, so it's like a technology for activating this coherence ladder, like tuning into different consciousness layers or chakras.
That's the model, seeing each layer or chakra as a Spinor eigenmode band. And the ritual steps like glyph mantra invocation to lock phase, breath pulse modulation to match oscillations, attention triangulation to focus the vector, and collapse integration to make the shift are presented as a methodology.
A methodology for conscious navigation. It's like conscious engineering. And the body is crucial here too, right? Not just a container.
Definitely not just a container. The body hosts a bioelectric coherence lattice. Qualia resonance is thought to embed directly into somatic form.
So feelings aren't just in the body, they're part of its structure.
Yes. Your chakra nodes, for example, are theorized as Spinor eigenmode cavities, linking the abstract consciousness tensor directly to your physical form. The body is an active part of the whole system.
And perception is bioelectrically reinforced. There are feedback loops.
Exactly. This feedback stabilizes qualia states. It allows for things like qualia anchoring, a feeling literally embedding via skin field vectors, or emotional imprint via ionic spin coupling in the body's chemistry, even healing coherence through scalar entrainment.
And can we measure this? You mentioned mapping.
The paper suggests it's possible, yeah. Using things like MeGeek to potentially track the eigenmode collapse dynamics, or maybe EKG and skin potential sensors to monitor these bioelectric shifts during, say, ritual or meditation.
Okay, and extending beyond one person, shared qualia fields. This sounds like the entanglement idea again.
It is. When multiple observers align their coherence gradients, maybe through shared intention or ritual, they can form a shared qualia manifold.
A shared manifold. So things like collective effervescence in rituals, or deep emotional resonance in relationships, or even those mind meld states in team flow. This theory gives them a potential physical basis.
It suggests exactly that, not just metaphors, but actual alignment of coherence fields leading to a shared probability of collapsing the same qualia states. Genuinely shared experience at a fundamental level.
And rituals could be designed specifically for this, to entangle observers.
Yes, the paper details how things like shared glyphs, group chanting, synchronized breath, or even specific touch gesture protocols could be used to create a meta-observer.
A meta-observer, like a group consciousness.
Essentially, yes. A collective field capable of navigating intersubjective qualia domains. It's definitely a frontier idea, but the framework provides a mathematical basis for how it could work by aligning individual observer vectors to form a larger, emergent coherent field.
Okay, let's try to wrap our heads around this. So what does this all mean? We've explored a theory proposing qualia aren't just subjective fluff, but structured resonance modes in a field.
Right. Rituals as specific operations on that field.
And the observer and as an active coherence vector shaping reality through collapse. It's a huge shift from consciousness just being in the brain.
It really is. The paper claims what was once ineffable, subjective experience, can now be formally embeddable within coherence mathematics and field ontology. That's a massive claim.
And it's not just theory, it proposes experiments.
Yeah, ways to potentially test these ideas. Perception field imaging with MAGEG, bioelectric lattice monitoring with body sensors, even those shared qualia field experiments using dual EEG and entrainment.
Looking at the big picture, the philosophical implications are, well, profound. It suggests a kind of non-dual view, doesn't it? Consciousness is not in the world. The world is in the modulation of consciousness.
That's exactly. Observer world experience all arising from these fundamental coherent symmetry operations.
Yeah.
And qualia are their luminous trace, the way we experience these operations. It fundamentally reframes our relationship to reality.
The paper ends with this really potent formula. Experience, tensor field collapse, observer modulation. Just think about that for a moment.
Mhm.
If your attention, your observer modulation, can actively shape your experience by literally collapsing quantum fields into specific qualia, what kind of reality are you right now as an active observer truly creating?
It leaves you with a lot to consider about your own role in the unfolding of experience.